gets the hose again.
We are
Princess!
live. We are live now.
Princess!
Well, welcome everyone to the Barre Beat podcast, live from Fly on the Wall Productions studios.
Mike,
already,
you
man,
seem
it has
like
been
you're having
such
a hard
long
time tonight.
I know.
It's just Mike's first show.
It feels like I don't think I've been on air for well over a month.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Raylene has been picking up the slack for me, and
well,
so
glad the G-Force Painting could get you back in the studio.
Yeah. Do you want to give a plug for G-Force Painting while you're here?
G-Force Painting, ink. Available for all your painting needs. You name it, we paint it. G-Force.
Oh, nice.
Currently hiring, starting $18 to $20 an hour. No experience necessary. Must have valid driver's license. And what else? That's about it.
That's about it?
That's about it. And some sort of permission to work in the United States.
All right. Wow. It's good to know.
That's it.
Probably
That's all.
not going to do that. I'm not a manual laborer, as you can tell. I'm a pretty big guy.
Booten, I don't know that I have the ladders. But if we use staging...
This is true. You might be able to put me on the staging.
I
It could be
put
possible.
you on the staging, perhaps in the lift.
That's fine.
What's your wingspan?
I don't know, but what's the maximum payload for the lift?
Pretty significant, because they can hoist pallets of bricks and stuff up with it. So
it's questionable. I'm not gonna lie. So, in case folks didn't realize, we've got a pretty open agenda tonight. We have Miss Gina Galfetti coming in. She's going to give us our
That's
legislative...
representative to you, Mike Booten.
I'm so sorry. Representative Gina... Oh my goodness. Are you channeling Diane Feinstein?
That's representative to you.
We shouldn't talk about Gina.
The Honorable Gina Galfetti.
The Honorable Gina Galfetti.
I think that's the official title.
Is that the official title?
I think that's the official title. I'm going to go ahead and turn down my phones now, Mike.
Oh, that's a pretty good idea.
Well, you know.
You got two phones.
I do. It's I got the business phone and the personal line, because I get a lot of calls these days.
I bet you do.
Yep.
You do.
It's been a busy session.
So you're here to talk to us about all the exciting things in the... Before we do that, we do got one other person here that we should probably let folks know. We've got the cat. We do have. We do have the cat. We got the cat.
We got three. We got Leah, too.
Well, I do got
desk.
Leah down there. She immediately saw you and as you came in, and she's terrified.
Not an unusual
people,
reaction for me.
Yeah, and there's Alice. She's coming in.
Alice Farrell.
So Gina, tell us what it's been like, your first session as the Honorable Gina Galfetti.
Well, Mike, it has been great. I've had a wonderful time getting to learn the building, meeting the people, and doing everything that I can do to represent the folks that sent me there and just fight the good fight. It's been a bit of an uphill battle. You know, I'm in the super minority, so in some ways I'm about as useful as the wallpaper, but it's been good. There's a lot to learn down there, and I ended up on the Institutions and Corrections Committee, which has been... At first, you get 5 picks that you send to the speaker, and then the speaker assigns you to a committee. And Corrections and Institutions was not on my list. So when it was announced after we were sworn in that was the committee I was going to sit on, I looked over at Topper McFawn, who's not only my district mate, but my seat mate in the chamber as well, and I was like, what? I'm like, did they just read my name? What is Corrections and Institutions, Top? And he's like, it's going to be great, kid. It's fine. It's a money committee. You'll be fine. And I'm like, but it wasn't on my list. He's like, it's going to be all right. And the chair of my committee, Alice Emmons, has been awesome. She is the dame of the house, which means she's been there the longest of any other rep. She was elected in 1982, I believe.
Is that because she's a girl?
Yes.
Dame?
There's the dame of the house or the dean of the house, whoever's been there the longest, whatever rep's been there the longest, and currently she's the dame of the house.
And how long has she been there?
Since 1982.
And how long has the dean been there?
No, it's not one at a time. There's just one.
Oh.
It's the longest serving member. And if they are male, they are the dean, and if they are female, they are the dame.
Got it.
As far as I know.
I get confused.
It's
nowadays.
okay. It's okay. It's been a long day.
So you've enjoyed yourself. You've had lots of fun. I've heard that you've been causing a little bit of trouble down there.
Yeah, I've always liked to be a trailblazer, and came out swinging and speaking my mind and shooting from the hip. And I think overall my candor was appreciated and listened to, albeit not acted upon for the most part.
So wait, when you say not acted upon, are you referring to the fact that there's like 5 of you?
Super minority. That's right, the super minority.
Like 5 or 10? How many are there?
There's 37 of us now.
Oh, there's 37. Wow.
There were 38, but Jared Samus decided to jump ship and go ahead and label himself as a libertarian.
Oh, great.
So we lost him, but
that didn't make any difference, though, did it?
Yeah, and I'm not sure that it was really a loss so much as a shifting of situations. So it's been tough, We don't have the votes to uphold the veto. We had until Samus left the votes to sustain a rules. Like if they want to suspend the rules, they have to have enough folks to override the rules for the day. Like if they want to take a bill and move it up to be considered more quickly, they have to suspend the rules. And we had enough votes that if they wanted to suspend the rules and we didn't agree to that we would have been able to stall the process. But that's about it. That was our one lightsaber, if you will, for the legislative session.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, I like to say that David Sheets, who is the curator of the State House, because the State House is also a museum, as you may know, was our caucus leader, because we were about as effective as the paintings on the wall or the throw pillows in the chamber. We were curated.
I'm sorry. It's not fun being in the minority, I can tell you that.
Oh, I made the best of it. Pain. The world gives you lemons and you make that lemonade, right?
Yeah. Or sometimes you just poison the lemon.
Sometimes it's bitter. Sometimes it's bitter. I tried not to let my bitterness get into the lemonade, but that is a tough one.
Yeah, for me, the bitterness just like flows.
Yeah.
Flows.
But I enjoyed making, a good floor speech on a bill that I was opposed to, or a vote explanation on something that I felt strongly about. So at least I was able to get myself on the record as having been opposed to or supportive of certain policy that was being made. Mostly opposed to things, I'd have to say. but that's kind of what I strove for, was to just get my voice out there and make sure that I was heard, that my constituents were heard, and kind of change it up, because there's a kind of a stagnation within the Republican caucus, and a lot of the same reps talk each time there's some floor debate. And as a freshman coming in, I feel like I really stepped up and added some diversity to the voices of the chamber that were being heard, and I think the other side paid a lot of attention to what I was saying because I was a new voice, so that was cool.
And as a new member, how much did you have to learn?
So much, Alice. So much. I mean, I will admit that on the ride home Friday night at midnight after we adjourned for the year, I tried to jettison a lot of the stuff that was stuck in my head, because it's a whole different cassette, maybe even a laser disc, if you will, that you pop in when you go down to Montpelier every day. And there was so much to learn about protocol and decorum and Excel spreadsheets and budgets and what is in a capital bill and which bills have to be passed, when it goes to the Senate, why it comes back, crossover. I mean, just a litany of stuff that was just all brand new.
So let's just talk about one of those, the process of a bill hits Hill, it goes on, not Capitol Hill, but goes just a bill. Anyway, the bill, it starts off in a committee, and then it meanders its way through the committee and into like a House vote and then the Senate vote. And either one of them doesn't like it, then the other one has to kick it back. And then if they finally get a resolution, then they send it off to the governor. And then, of course, if the governor doesn't like it, he vetoes it.
Well, I think first thing, not to interrupt, Mike, but I think the first thing that's really important that a lot of people don't realize is that there's hundreds of bills that are introduced. And the bill is introduced, and then the Speaker of the House assigns it to its committee of jurisdiction. And once it reaches that committee of jurisdiction, there are literally dozens and dozens of bills that are up on the wall, as they say in the business. And it's the chair of the committee's responsibility to decide which bills get taken up for consideration. So the chair of the committee has an enormous amount of power, because if they don't decide to take your bill off the wall, then it dies there. Sure. And that's the end of it.
Any Republicans that are chairs of committees?
I'm trying to think who.
Which one got the pity?
In the Senate.
Which one got the penny vote?
In the Senate, we've got Russ Ingalls on the corresponding committee to me, Corrections and Institutions. And then I believe Pat Brennan is the chair of Approps, but don't quote me on that, in the House. And I don't think we've got any other Republican chairs in the House committees. So we're pretty hamstrung.
And when you talk about off the wall, it literally is, as I understand it, 3x5 cards pinned to a bulletin board.
That's right, Alice.
Yeah, and so everybody gets to see what everyone has suggested, but then the chair of the committee gets to pick which ones get evaluated.
So the chair has a tremendous amount of power. If, you've introduced some legislation, if the chair doesn't decide to take it up, that's the end of it. And a great example of that is the child care bill that ended up coming out and a number of bills, actually. You know, Phil Scott, when he released his budget, had plans for how that money should be spent, but Phil can't introduce any legislation himself. So by proxy, a rep will introduce a bill that is in tune with his policy that he's trying to implement. And for instance, in the child care bill, Governor Scott had a very clear outline for how he wanted child care to be funded, and he was going to be able to do it without raising taxes or fees, and do it within the budget that he had presented. Long story short, that bill never came off the wall. Instead, a very different child care bill that was far more generous, shall we say, I think that's a polite word to use, came off the wall, that was more in line with the Democratic agenda, and that was the only child care bill that we were able to consider. So for somebody like myself who ran on child care and expanding and improving child care options in Vermont, I pretty much was put in a position where if I wanted to support child care initiatives, I had to go with the bill that was introduced and actually made it to the House floor. So it makes it very difficult when people don't understand the ins and outs of what's going on to stay true to the platform that you've run on without crossing into a place where you're being fiscally irresponsible. And that was kind of a line that I straddled and struggled with during this session.
So, I mean, let's talk about S5.
Oh, yeah. My favorite.
Everybody. So, first off, why don't you let folks know what S5 is?
S5 is the unaffordable HEAT Act. And S5 was a bill that was put forward to satisfy some of the goals that are lined out in the Global Warming Solutions Act that was passed in 2020. And the idea is that we have to cut our carbon emissions in the home heating sector by a certain amount by 2030. So S5 is part of a plan to satisfy and implement a strategy to cut our carbon emissions in the home heating sector. And S5 basically charges the Public Utilities Commission with doing a study, not a study, to see how we can basically use a system of credits, carbon credits, green credits, whatever you want to call them. They haven't settled on a word yet, to offset the cost of weatherization and heat pumps for folks by penalizing fuel dealers. And
cool. Where's that price going to go to when we penalize them? Are we going to... Who's going to pay for that penalization?
The fuel dealers are going to eat it, Mike. And they're not going to pass it on to their customers, are they?
Oh, yeah. It sounds like rising taxes and how the landlords don't pass it on to tenants.
Right, exactly. The fuel dealers are going to go ahead and they're going to absorb that cost. They're not going to pass it on to the end user. That's the dream that is S5.
Yeah.
And I think also what folks don't understand is there's the talk about the study, but in the meantime, the cost to the fuel dealers is being instituted. correct?
No, the cost of the fuel dealers isn't being instituted. What's happening is that they're adding positions at the Public Utilities Commission to start implementing the system and examine what it's going to look like in costs. However, they're going to start registering fuel dealers and standing up the program with no legislative oversight. The Public Utilities Commission is going to be able to do all this. So they're basically, kicking that tiny little snowflake off the top of Mount Everest. And by the time the check back comes in 2025, they're able to have such a leeway is not the word I'm looking for, but I'll use it. Leeway to begin implementing the policy to begin using this system of carbon credits.
So basically what we're talking about is that the legislature once again has created a committee that it has no jurisdiction or has all jurisdiction with no direct responsibility to the people of Vermont. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, that's great. That's
in
wonderful.
a nutshell.
It's lovely when you hear that. That's always
it's
great.
It's great when the legislature passes the buck to somebody else.
Yeah. I know that Governor Scott said I'm particularly concerned that the PUC plan will not be returning to the legislature in a normal bill form and go through the full legislative process and, if passed, go to the governor for signature, an initiative which, with such far-reaching financial impacts, deserves to be fully debated in a transparent way. And obviously it came to him and he vetoed it, and it went nowhere except for back to the House where they said yes. House and Senate, and overrid it, which is too bad. I mean...
Yeah, the Senate we were close. Yeah. The Senate we only needed one more vote. And in the House, I think the final vote ended up being like 42 or 43 towards overriding the veto, and we needed 51. And it just, we just didn't have the votes. And everybody that sits in the House had a massive outpouring of communication from their constituents to vote against S5, and they ignored it.
Yeah, I actually was kind of surprised by some of the people that were against it. I have a very left-leaning individual that's a friend of mine, and she was like, vote no on S5, and I'm like, wow. And when you cross over that line, maybe you've gone too far. There has to be, I hope that there is some sort of like consequences for the folks that voted this way and they actually, suffer at the ballot box. But unfortunately, I highly doubt that any of them will.
Well, that's part of the reason I'm here tonight, Mike, is we need to keep the heat turned up on S5, and we need to keep it in the media. We need to keep the message out there. I mean, a little late.
It is a little late, but it's still.
I'll take it. Keep the heat on.
There we go.
On S5.
I upset Leah.
So we need to keep that message alive in the media as much as possible that legislators voted against what the people wanted, and that they didn't do their due diligence. And I think the biggest thing with the S5 vote was those who voted for it made the argument that the people had been coerced. So basically, they said that the people weren't wise enough to see that the evil fuel dealers had bamboozled them with information that was untrue. And that they
I've used that term recently.
Knew better than the people that they represent. And to me, that's just totally reprehensible. Bamboozle? Reprehensible.
Right.
Follow?
I'm sorry. I like the term hornswoggled.
Hornswoggled
works. Is a good one. That's usually what I refer to when I'm referring to someone.
Suckered, I think.
Suckered?
I think is also fair.
Hogwash? I like hornswoggled.
Gobbledygook. It's a favorite of mine.
Yeah. It's interesting, like, that's where they go is, the people don't understand. Or maybe you don't understand that the people understand, and you just have no connection to the folks that you represent. Especially when I'm willing to bet you every single one of them is part of some sort of group that's all they hear from is that one group, and nobody gets through. Because that's usually what happens. We get stuck in our echo chamber. Yeah,
and a lot of folks that are in the Vermont legislature right now are in a bubble where they have been fed an agenda that they have to stick to. And the leadership in Montpelier of the Democratic Party is extremely good at keeping people in line. They threaten the reps with withdrawing their funding for their next election cycle, taking them off the committees that they're on, primarying them out in the next election to make sure that they stay in line and vote the way they're supposed to. And I think that was probably the highlight of being in the Republican caucus and party and having the ability to freely vote my conscience and my constituents' will.
Yeah.
That's the difference there for sure.
It is a nice feeling to be able to do that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and that's I think that's what we're supposed to be there to do.
Unless I think so, but sometimes you wonder. You do have to wonder.
Yeah.
And you wonder what it's going to take to get representatives to understand that the people really do know what they're up to, and they aren't as backward as they would like to pretend on this S5 business.
Yeah.
And it's engendered a tremendous amount of both anger on one side and fear on the other. And I hear people saying that they are preparing to leave the state.
Yeah.
They are preparing to live in other areas where they aren't as highly taxed. They're fearful that they won't be able to heat their homes if they're living in a moderate to larger sized home. And the fact that the expense of redoing any type of a central heating system is way out of most people's means.
Absolutely. And for folks that are older and on fixed incomes, the savings that they're predicting is on a 30-year model. And as much as we'd like to live to 110 or 115 or 120, most people that are 85, 80 aren't ever going to see any savings from the financial predictions that they're making if they threw down the 30 or 40 or 50 grand that it would cost to upgrade to heat pumps, a hot water heat pump system, and do all the weatherization that S5 calls for. And I think the thing that really struck me is there was a lot of debate as to whether or not S5 was a study, but I think what got forgotten in this dialogue is that whether it's a study, whether it can be implemented, it's a carbon tax. It's looking at putting a carbon tax into place.
Well, I will quote the Governor Scott, the great Governor Scott. I like him. He said that proponents of the bill have argued nothing will move forward without future legislative approval. They also said this essentially is a study. So this is essentially a study. Both of these statements are misleading. For example, effective on passage, the clean heat standard is established and the commission shall adopt rules that may issue orders to implement and enforce the clean heat standard program. The first registration deadline for fuel dealers is January 31st.
2024.
34.
2024.
Oh,
no, not 34.
No, 31st of 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before this ever comes back to legislature.
Yeah, because it doesn't come back to the legislature to 2025.
The commission is given enforcement authority from day one. They can issue orders to implement the system and enforce those orders. Once again, a committee that's set up with no legislative oversight.
Exactly.
Before this ever comes back to the legislature, the commission must designate the first default delivery agency on or before June 1st, 2024. This contract may be as long as 12 years. What does that mean? Do you know what that means?
That the contract could be as long as 12 years?
Yeah, it says, before this ever comes to the legislature, the commission must designate the first default delivery agency.
The default delivery agency, in my understanding, is going to look like Efficiency Vermont.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason Vermont Gas, the natural gas dealer, was able to get exempted because they're elbowing their way in, I think, to become the default delivery agent as well. So there's a few moving parts there. But as you know, natural gas is pretty much available in where?
What?
Come on, Mike. Where's natural gas available?
Right here in the U.S.
No, mainline natural gas, though.
Oh,
you can actually, you can get propane at your house, but
Yeah.
natural gas lines are pretty much in, Alice?
Southern Vermont.
Chittenden County.
Oh.
Okay.
In the cities, the urban areas. So it's something that we're going to exempt natural gas that's available in Chittenden County and other urban areas, but folks that are using propane in the rural communities will still get hit with the tax.
Nice.
I see.
I can't imagine how that exception was decided.
Right. So
Nice.
a lot of underhanded stuff going on.
And was there any discussion? They talk about the fossil fuels and the clean heat and things going into the air. Was there any discussion of the renewable wood aspect? Because wood actually puts more particulate into the air than anything else.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a big bone that I had to pick with the whole thing, is that wood ended up being exempted from the fuels that are going to be penalized under the Unaffordable Heat Act. And my argument has been that because wood is exempted, there's going to be a big push for folks to start using wood. And currently we import a lot of our wood from Canada, a lot from New Hampshire, and it's something that the price of wood is going to become volatile. B, as you mentioned, is something like 400% more carbon producing than natural gas, propane, or even fuel oil. So we're going to be pushing folks towards a fuel that's renewable, because trees grow. Did you know that, Mike?
They do grow.
Yeah.
It does take some time, though.
Yeah. And so that's
take
the
a little
argument
time.
there, is that because trees grow, there's somehow a renewable energy, which is not
Takes a little bit
accurate.
of time.
Yeah, and
Just-
I am a
just for
huge
clarity.
proponent, and having used wood heat for 28 years with a wood-fired furnace, real furnace, as opposed to just a pellet stove. And now in our smaller house that my husband and I live in, we have the pellet stove. But to do cordwood, you're cutting down older trees, bigger trees, to do cordwood. To make pellets, you can clear cut because anything can be ground up and then squeezed out as wood pellets. And that's a huge question about the renewability of it. If it takes 10 years to grow a tree back so you can burn it again, but you're clear cutting an area to make pellets,
Yeah, but what we're
that's
going to do, Alice...
that's an environmental
What we're
catastrophe.
going to do is we're going to go ahead and let North Carolina and Canada clear cut their forests. And here in Vermont, we're going to pass the 30 by 30 rule, which is going to increase the amount of conserved land in Vermont and protect our forests. So we'll just go ahead and import our wood chips, so our forests will be fine, but we'll cut forests elsewhere. So we can wreak environmental havoc upon some other jurisdiction in the interest of serving our growing need for wood chips.
Oh, gotta love it.
And
Gotta
while
love
we're
our
at it,
state
because I'm
legislature.
in institutions and corrections, we've got a huge push and initiative within the state buildings to convert the furnaces to wood chip boilers.
Oh.
So even at the state level, we are going to be pumping as much carbon into the atmosphere as we can.
Cool.
Yeah.
I will say I'll be pumping carbon into the air shortly, either today or tomorrow, with my smoker.
Nice.
And how do you smoke that cream cheese?
You smoke it with chips, not chips.
No smoking here.
No smoking. No. With pellets, good pellets, purchased from Nelson's Ace Hardware.
Ace Hardware.
Ace Hardware. Not
Nelson
Nelson
Brothers.
True Value, 'cause
Is
that-
it no
it's-
longer?
It hasn't been that for like 20 years. It's nascent.
Always the
Nelson
last to
Ace-
know, Mike. Always
I
the
know.
last to know.
So he called me on that because he was actually on the show, and I mentioned it, and he's like, "It's Ace Hardware."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh yeah,
Learn
sorry."
something
And
every
he's,
day.
He's like, "We were Nelson True Value for like 2 years." I did not know that.
But it still is the holy grail
Yes.
of homeowners.
And they have pellets. So what other bills do you want to chat about? I mean, we could argue about the child, the universal meals, but you
Oh,
probably
I don't think we'd be arguing.
Oh, we wouldn't?
No.
Oh, okay.
Did you
okay.
not glean some info from my my voting list? Or are you just completely unprepared?
I'm completely unprepared.
I don't know. Maybe we are arguing, but
Were you for or against it?
I was against it.
Okay, yeah, we'd argue.
Oh, yay. Excellent. Excellent. I have a problem with the Universal School Meals program because it's a regressive tax. It's based on the Ed Fund, which is property taxes, which means as property taxes go up, people that are renting and people that are low income are going to be penalized, and those are the people we're supposed to be helping with universal school meals, and we're going to drive up their cost to provide the universal school meals when the people that have got the major bucks, the people in the $500,000 and up homes, aren't going to blink, and the people that have the salaries that are, $300,000 aren't going to blink either, and their kids are going to go ahead and get free meals as well. And my argument was, I should look it up because I had it journalized. I had this, this was my vote explanation, and that is, all you have to do is look at shoes. And it's quite obvious, based on a child's shoes and whether or not they have one pair of shoes or many pairs of shoes, what their economic status is. I know this because I had one pair of shoes and a single working mother to provide them. So if somebody wanted to single me out for being of a lower income status or economic status, I should say, all they had to do was look at my shoes. They didn't have to look at where I got my lunch from, but simply take a gander down at my feet. And with all of the Ving cards and accounts that we can set up now, I think that there's a way to provide a subsidized or lower cost meal to a child without that being a glaring issue that other kids can see.
Well, I
see maybe a tiny bit of...
I will just say that I was at the Berrytown school on Friday while all the kids were running in and grabbing food off the shelves and punching in their little key and the
people used to call that lunchtime.
Well, they do it for breakfast.
You make it sound like looting, Mike.
No, it looked like they were looting. They were like grabbing them off the shelves, but they were punching in their keys, so it wasn't looting.
Right, and look at how easy that was. Punch it in on the key. No one ever needs to know whether you're getting a subsidized meal or whether you're paying full freight.
Not a bad comment. Not a bad comment.
Perhaps, Michael Booten. I see. And see, you come to the legislature, Mike. You need to run for rep here in the city because that right there, the fact that I actually was able to maybe get a wheel turning in your head, it gives me...
You're suggesting that I should run for legislature?
Yes.
I feel...
Because that, but the...
I feel the fear...
The wheels turning is something that I did not experience at the State House. There's no, even if it was a thoughtful, considerate thing. You can run as whatever you want to be.
That would be fun.
Yeah, why not? I mean, we have a real vacuum there. The problem is if you run as a Dem.
We got a vacuum there.
We've got a real vacuum of intellect there. So we would welcome you with open arms. And then, you can always switch parties.
Well, I mean, I would hate to run for state legislature because the centralization of power as was brought up multiple times because of me running for school board. I should do it just to piss everybody off.
Emperor Booten. Dun, 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 dun.
So, along those lines, what about? So you stepped off the dock to get into the ocean of politics. If we wanted to get more folks inspired and educated about what it takes to do that, to build up the energy even within themselves. What did you see from your own experience in taking on that role of being a candidate and then being a legislator?
Well, I think probably the most important thing that you're going to need is a certain level of, shall we say, mental instability. Because anybody who takes this on is crazy. If I could go back and talk to my younger self, I'd say, "Hey, kid, this is gonna be a real gauntlet to go through." But that being said, it's our duty we're a citizen legislature, and if you want to see things change, if you want to see things stay the same, everybody's got to do their part. Democracy is only as good as its weakest link, and if we don't get folks out there, it's just going to be a place where not everybody is represented, and it's a huge commitment. It's a huge time commitment. It's a huge financial commitment. You know, my business has suffered having taken my legislative seat for sure, but I see my contribution is valuable.
Let me ask you about your contribution, so to speak. You know, I was messaging a friend, and we were talking about legislature, and I can't remember which bill it was that we were actually referring to. I don't remember.
I bet it's H39.
I don't remember, but she had mentioned that they're just trust fund babies up there. And I was informing her, I completely agree with her that I don't think any of them have ever seen a bank account, which I sent her a screenshot of my bank account, which was $7. And I said, I'm willing to bet you none of them have seen that type of bank account. And from your mingling and hobnobbing up there, how many do you think are like more than well off and wouldn't experience that problem?
I would say that maybe not a vast majority, but a majority of the folks down there are independently wealthy or retired.
Nice. So they represent the state of Vermont and our demographics quite well.
Or at a place...
So dumb. Oh, it's so frustrating.
At a place in their lives where they have some sort of situation that they can get by on minimal dollars, which is changing because of H39.
So
and that was the
H39
legislative pay raise.
Ooh. So
yeah.
What's this? I need to know about this because maybe I will run.
Pay raise.
So how much was the pay raise?
I think at the end of the day, it just about doubles the compensation between the health insurance
so it's like 30,000?
and the raise. No, it's like 20. I believe it's 27 or 28, and you get full benefits health insurance
for the whole year.
Yes, not just when you're in session. So you get year-round health insurance. So do the math on that.
I'm doing the math on that.
And they really sweeten the pot with that one. And, you know, a lot of people are predicting that they're going to try to make this a full-time gig. Full-time, year-round gig.
5 months. That's 5 months for $28,000. That doesn't include your meals, right?
I think that's with everything.
Oh,
I
that's
believe
with
that's
everything.
with everything. I believe that's your per diem plus your mileage plus your meals averages out to that.
Oh, okay. So if you live in Barre, the mileage would be lower, so you wouldn't be hitting that higher mileage then.
Right. And you wouldn't be taking the room, so you wouldn't get the room reimbursement.
Okay, so we're still looking at somewhere around 20,000.
No, as far as like the actual pay itself, I think it's like 22 or 3 just the pay.
Just the pay.
It goes from like $800 a week to $1,100 a week, and it's incremental. The first year is like it goes up to like $980, and then up to $1,000, and then
Taxable,
up to $1,100.
Right. All taxed.
Yeah. Well, I don't. The rooms and meals and mileage, they're kind of, I think it's going back and forth on whether or not they're going to tax that or make that non-taxable. Right now it's taxed.
Okay. But the income is taxed.
Yeah, the income is taxed.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. That's just too much work for me.
Yeah. So it's a significant raise.
Not enough to push me over.
No, no. It really it changes nothing for me, and I think for most business owners that want to take this on.
Yeah.
That bump isn't going to make the difference on whether or not you're mentally deficient enough to take on the idea of running for office.
We need individuals that are struggling to buy milk to run for office. That's what we need.
Yeah.
It's just really frustrating. It's as Michael Deering has said, gentrification in our city alone and in the state of Vermont is absolutely happening. You know, and certainly being controlled by people that are more than well off. If you can afford an electric car, you do not represent the majority of the people, especially in Barre. The average income is like 40,000 annually.
Right. I was out in Calais last week looking at a job for G-Force Painting. And
do you have a phone number?
802-461-3520. Now booking into 2024. But when I went out to this guy's spread, had a beautiful farm, outbuildings, indoor riding arena, and he wanted the paint job tuned up because the real estate photographer was coming at the end of this month. And I just kind of casually said to him, I was like, wow, I'm like, you finally pulling up the tent stakes because the taxes have gone up? And he whipped his head around and he was like, these taxes are nothing. I'm from New York.
That's a valid point.
You know, working with a lot of the clients that I do out in Waitsfield, Warren, Stowe, these increases are nothing to a lot of these folks. And they've come from places where the tax rates are higher, and they don't see these as big increases. But to your average working Vermonter, this is do or die kind of stuff. And that's what's really concerning. And when you think about it, where are the folks that are in the service jobs, that are in the trades jobs, going to come from or live if we keep, having this unrealistic tax and spend fee increase governance?
Yeah. All right. Well, I have nothing.
You've got nothing. All right. We did pay raises. We did universal school meals, childcare, S5. What other real gems did we have in there this year?
Did you guys pass the EV vehicle 5 years, don't have to get inspected?
Did we end up doing that? I'm trying to remember
that
if they tacked
helps.
that into another bill or not.
Certainly helps, people that don't make a lot of money is, making it so that...
I think in the T-bill, what they ended up doing is now there's going to be a mileage fee for electric vehicles so that they're paying some of the road use tax. So when you get
I do like that.
Yeah, when you get your EV inspected every year, they're going to look at what the mileage was.
What a shame.
Yeah, finally, if you're willing to play the game, it'll be coming around again.
Let's just be honest. If you own an EV, you can afford the taxes. Just saying.
That's right.
And the other thing, I kind of did an informal survey. I was in a parking lot, not here in Barre, but in another parking lot in another part of the state. And I was looking at the little registration stickers on people's cars. And for whatever reason, whether they just forgot to put the sticker on or whatever, but there are cars on the road whose registrations expired in 2020.
You should walk around the State House parking lot.
2021, and they're there. And I'm sure it's because of the fees. I mean, and now they're upping the fees. So to have a car...
Well, that didn't pass, did it?
Yeah, they tacked it in.
Oh, they did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're up in the DMV fees.
Yay.
But the good news is we're no longer going to suspend your license for a failure to pay tickets.
Oh, really?
So you can go ahead and blow off the tickets and we're not going to suspend your license. So to hell with getting your car registered anymore. Just don't worry about it because we're not going to make you pay the fees.
Yo, are you serious?
Absolutely.
Like, that is so tempting.
Yes, on one hand,
That
we
is so
passed a bill to raise fees, but on the other hand, we've also passed a bill to
So what
no longer
happens?
suspend licenses.
What happens? It just,
when you don't pay them?
Yeah.
Nothing.
does it like go up and up and up, or does it just?
It will continue to go up, but I think you can continue not to pay.
Wow.
And there'll be no more license suspensions for that. I mean, moving violations and things like that,
you know who that's going to affect? The only people that's going to affect are those that actually follow the rules.
That's right. That's right. Just, that's another one we didn't get to. H230? H230, the Suicide Prevention Act.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Is that the one that was
AKA
coupled with
the gun bill.
Yes, the one where they wanted to prevent suicide via gun, but we're totally on board with being a suicide place.
Suicide tourism
state.
state.
That's great. That's great.
Yes.
Let me just tell you,
Yes.
if you're thinking about suicide, that's a mental health issue, and folks it really frustrates me, like the whole assisted suicide thing. And people that are in need of, well, I'll let you explain it, and you can explain what the bill is.
The bill basically it implements a 72-hour waiting period between when you want to purchase a gun and when you take delivery of the gun. And you are also now responsible for locking up your firearm and the ammunition unless the gun is within your immediate control, i.e. on your person or on the desk in front of you. Or you'll be subject to fines and potential jail time if it turns out that your gun is used in any kind of suicide or death resulting situation. And the problem is that it's unconstitutional. It's not gonna hold up in court.
Whoa.
There we go. Barry's finest fire department heading out.
Yeah,
Wow.
Marytown.
And Barrytown.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Something's going on. And just so
The hot
folks,
donut lights on at Krispy Kreme.
I don't think so.
terrible. And just for those that are listening, suicide is a really serious issue, and if you're thinking about it, 988 is the suicide and crisis lifeline. Just
And
wanted to
it
put
is
that
a
out there.
serious issue, but the misnomer with this bill is it's not. There's never been a gun law passed that's linked to a reduction in gun violence. City of Chicago, great example, always stands up as having the most restrictive gun laws, yet the highest rate of gun violence. So, unfortunately, there was no study done as to what kind of impact doing something like this would have, other than limiting your personal liberty. And you're right, Mike. It's a very serious and just heart-wrenching thing to think that somebody is taking their own life for whatever reason it may be. And
For the state of Vermont based on making it easier for out-of-state folks to come here to get patient-assisted suicide. It is like tourism, and that's just, it's just wrong to encourage that. And then on the other end, say that you're passing legislation to avoid it. It just feels very. It
goes along with a lot of the conundrums we've had this year. Another good one is that we've some of the charter changes made allowances for voting for 16-year-olds. Yet we also raised the age for youthful offenders. So your brain is fully developed enough for you to vote, but it's not fully developed enough to be responsible for a crime.
16-year-olds should not be voting. I'll say this, though. If 16-year-olds were voting en masse for Republicans, that bill would have never passed.
No, definitely not.
Never. Because that's what it's all about.
Well, in the words of Winston Churchill, if you're young and you're not a liberal, you have no heart. And if you're old and you're not a conservative, you have no brain.
The great statesman. I love Winston Churchill.
But something that also has concerned me about just in general passing bills and creating bills, so many of them seem so duplicative. And and that's kind of stood out for me anyway with that prevention of suicide bill, that there are already services in place. And we talk about Washington County Mental Health and the excellent work that they do. Admittedly short-staffed, but are we duplicating what they're doing? Are we enhancing what they're doing? There was never any mention of what those agencies, how those agencies are going to be affected by that particular bill. And why?
That's
just a rhetorical question, but why?
Yeah. I can tell you that if you want to lower suicide in our country and reduce gun violence, honestly, you do it through religious adherence. And we as a society have lost our touch with God. And straight up, I'm sorry, it's just gonna make the comment.
Save me, Michael Boone.
If the country were to have more of a religious adherence, the church community. I'm just gonna throw it out there because it's 100% accurate.
And that's any church.
Any church. I'm not specifically saying. Although I would tell you that, my church is the best. But that's not the point.
Right.
What about the Church of Satan?
Well, obviously. Well, those people are, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just saying that we've lost that connection, because that creates a community that is, look it up. Trust me, I'm right. Just trust me.
Okay.
With that.
Not 100%. Sure. I can float with you over there, Booten.
Michael Deering could. Michael Deering would.
But I can say that supporting organizations like Washington County Mental Health and folks that are doing the hard work with substance abuse and things like that would be far more effective than passing feel-good legislation that limits your constitutional rights to bear arms. There's a lot of ways we could be more effective at preventing suicide than passing useless legislation.
I'll say this. As the decline in church attendance has gone down, the incline of gun violence has gone up. So I'm just pointing it out there.
Just saying.
All right. With
you
that,
would have liked my speech about the budget.
Yeah, go for it.
It was I'm just kind of paraphrasing now. It was pretty good at the time, but what comes to mind when I look at Vermont's budget this year is Nero fiddling while Rome burned. And that the folks that push this budget and this agenda through are having wine with the Mad Emperor. So that's my feeling about what we're doing in Vermont is pushing an agenda that's gonna break the backs of Vermonters.
Yeah.
Back to you, Boone.
Well,
hit the bell again. I like the bell.
Well,
Yes.
Unaffordable Heat Act.
Unaffordable Heat Act. I think we're up at an hour and 5 minutes, so we'll call it a night, I guess, unless you have something else you want to tell us.
I think that's good, Mike. I mean, I feel like I got a good dose of religious reality. Save me, Michael Boone.
Just saying. I'm just saying.
Save me, Michael Boone.
And we in Barrytown, though, feel very grateful to have Gina as our representative. I mean, it is really a breath of fresh air. Rob LeClaire, who chose to retire, good man, served well, but it's time for the girls to take over.
All right. R-E-S-P-C-T.
Yes. So, well, we really are. We are really. It's a joy to have Gina represent us.
Thank you, Alice. I'm doing the best I can, and I'm gonna keep fighting the good fight.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
That really is important.
Barrytown's, that's what I'm here for. Anybody has anything that they need, reach out to me, Gina Galfetti, or it's actually G Galfetti at leg.state.vt.us, or call me 802-461-3520. Also available for all your painting needs.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Now that I have a little bit of time in my schedule, I will be a frequent flyer.
All right. And want to say thank you for the kitty for showing up again. For those that don't know, that's the Rotary's Art Splash, and you can go down on Main Street and take a look at all the fine art that's
it's great this year, huh?
It is. It's really awesome. I love the little piggies.
Oh, the pigs are great. The bears, I like the bears.
Yes, the bears.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was pretty nice.
How
it's
many
pretty
years
cool.
have they been doing that now?
Two.
This is the second year,
The
right?
second year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
really cool.
So go on down Main Street and take a look at the great art that's on our street. And I think they're going to be auctioning them off. So if you like one, you can get one. I don't know if you can get this one right here, but you could certainly reach out to Air It Out and see whether or not they would be interested. Yeah, there's none out there. Sorry. But with that, we want to say thank you again for coming down. And we will see everyone next week. Barre Beat live from Fly on the Wall Productions, Main Street, Barre, Vermont. And hope you guys have a lovely evening.